you did graciously the same during my activation at the Grand Hyatt on the 7th, which was very well received by many of these influential people and impact investors who were there. Since we are now between COP28, December 2023, and the World Economic Forum in Davos, January 2024. So before asking you about your ongoing experience in Davos, how would you assess, in a nutshell, the results of COP28?
Okay. Well, if you'd like me to come up with an open and straightforward and transparent answer, I'm a tad disappointed, I have to admit. Well, there are good things and the bad things as well. I mean, the good thing is that it's for the first time, and that's historic. That there has been a phrase, a fully fledged phrase, acknowledging the need for society, for humanity, to walk away from the fossil fuel. And that's probably the most important consequence of aftermath of COP28. It has been worded, it has been included into the verbiage of the final statements. It hadn't happened up until then. The deplorable thing, though, or things, and those are quite galore, I'd say, the world, the climate finance certainly is not clearly moving ahead forward at the right pace, at a pace sufficient enough. Because we're just really facing a very narrow window of the opportunity if we are to keep the Paris agreement's aims and goals and purposes alive. Okay, we really this is a decisive decade. I know I'm just harping on the same tune and reiterating what has been said times and again, but it is within the next 10 years max that we will know if we either consolidate all of our collective efforts and turn the tides, or the world will just not be the same as we know it today. I'm not at all a doomsmonger, quite the contrary. You know better than anyone else that CC Forum is all about getting the new technologies and startups and projects being heard and seen. But what I'm just saying, just trying to answer your question, I was a little bit disappointed with the outcomes of the forum, of the COP28, because many of the heads of states, prime ministers and presidents, they just came there and as if they were ticking off a box. Okay, it was a bit of paying a lip service to the huge tasks we're all facing today. You know, it was not as in-depth as I was expecting. It was rather superficial and certainly not enough. And that's what really that left me a little bit disenchanted.
I see. And now being in Davos, attending the World Economic Forum, how do you see the impact of COP28, whatever it has been? I mean, for some has been a good result, for others has been disappointing. But how do you see let's say, the heritage or the legacy of COP28 in such a short period of time during the World Economic Forum, and also in perspective of COP29? But let's focus on Davos for a moment, and then we'll discuss the way forward.
Well, yes, I'm in Davos at the moment, and I've been just attending quite a few sessions here, many events. But I'll tell you what, again, that's a bit of a disappointment to me. It's a double disappointment. Not that, I mean, the most important value that Davos can bring is it's second to none in terms of networking, you know, making new contacts and waiting for once in a lifetime changing opportunity to meet the investor, whatever. That's probably the idea that most people are just having here. But in terms of the real impact, I would say the results of COP28, if you want to hear this sharing how they tell or how they're seen or heard from the Davos agenda, are infinitesimal. And that's probably the most deplorable thing of all, because suffice to say, there are hundreds, well, dozens certainly, but probably even hundreds of events of various sorts alongside with Davos. And very few of them, it's almost inconceivable, very few of them have to do with climate change. Yes, it's a little bit about impact investment here and there, a little bit of how we just hear more, you know, what the scientists have to say. It's a bit more about integrating, you know, the government strategy, but there's nothing consistent. There is nothing systematic about it, okay? I've been getting the impression over the last 3 days that I've been in Davos that things are going very much the same way as they had been 10, 15 years ago. People are more carried away with integrating AI, which is a very important problem, but there's nowhere near as existential as a climate change. You know, web, blockchain, which is all fantastic. So it's not enough. And just finally, to wrap up with that, the one edition of Davos Forum where I thought and hoped, and everyone was hoping, would make the difference was back in 2020, shortly before COVID-19 struck in, when Greta Thunberg was here, she was protesting, walking around the street. I thought the tide was changing back then. But now, even though we're facing the worst cataclysmic year in its historically, 2020, the hottest statistically,
Yes,
they don't seem to, change dramatically, and that's really, really sad.
yes. No, I totally agree with you, and that makes our work even more important for humanity. So I take that as an additional responsibility for us to push forward the climate agenda in all major global media activations, so to get the highest level of visibility and impact, and also always connecting, as we said earlier, the elites, the decision makers, with the masses and the consumers, because everybody has to contribute to this paradigm shift. And now I must say that while I agree with you that the Davos and the World Economic Forum agenda is mainly focusing on profit, it's apart from a few conversations about AI, as you mentioned, is a very obsolete way of conducting business. But I must say that recently, as you well know, because we co-produced together a panel in Dubai about the new multi-trillion green and blue economies, I must say that the banking and finance sectors, including the big insurance companies, the pension funds, I mean, those who really control the global finances and the world economies, at least on paper, they have taken that pledge to transition the world finance towards sustainability and the new generation of technologies that are more sustainable, more responsible, and so on. So I feel that Davos, the leadership in Davos is still anchored to old paradigms, and maybe because maybe they live in a different cloud, they don't see these dynamics unfolding and these opportunities as well. While
I'd like to add to that, I absolutely agree with you, Enzo. It's always been so hugely politically over focused, politicized.
Exactly.
We all understand, the horrible conflicts that are taking place, unfortunately, as we speak in the world. That is not something we can ignore or neglect. Certainly not. But I would have thought humanity simply cannot afford to wage wars as we speak. So we have really much more existential issues facing today, all of us really. And what I'm trying to do with the CT Forum, I'm doing this for my kids and their generation, because I just simply don't want them to wage wars for food and water. It's just as simple as that.
Yes.
So by and large, really, I would have hoped that by now, Davos World Economic Forum would become more, open